G'day and welcome to another episode of Ian Smissen's Photography. This evening I'm going to try and take two of the classic shots of Perth. One behind me, what's locally known as the Blue Boathouse for obvious reasons. Apologies in advance for the road noise. We're right on the side of the road here on Mounts Bay Road in Perth, and it's one of the main thoroughfares in and out of Perth, and it's about just after 5:30 in the evening at the moment, so peak hour traffic going up and down, cyclists and walkers along the path next to it as well. But we're going to try and get a shot of this iconic boathouse on Matilda Bay on the Swan River in Perth. And then we're going to go up a few hundred metres behind and just a bit around the road into Kings Park to get a view over the city and hopefully get some slow shutter speed shots as the blue hour in the evening comes, and try and get some of those blurred car lights shots going in and out of the city, and time it so that we get the greatest number of city lights on while there's still a little bit of light in the sky as well. As you can see by the background here, it's cloudy, but there's still enough blue sky to hope that we get some light closer to sunset. I'm going to take a couple of shots here. You can also see there's a lot of ripples on the river, so I'm going to take some slower shutter speed ones by putting a neutral density filter on to flatten that water out and square up the shot so that it is purely just the boathouse and the river behind it, and see what we can get here before we move up to Kings Park. G'day and welcome to part two. I'm now up at the War Memorial in Kings Park overlooking the city. I'll switch through to video on the camera here and show you what I can see. It's the sort of classic panoramic view of the city skyline with the freeway in the foreground and Lakeside Drive curling into the freeway. I'm going to take some test shots here and work out an exposure and a composition, and then I'm going to try to get that set and not move the tripod or the lens or the settings, and take a series of shots through sunset and after sunset as the lights of the city come on, and then choose some of the best exposures and blend the lights so that you get this mixture of sort of sunset light and then the lights in the foreground, and then the later evening shots with the slow shutter speed and the car headlights and tail lights moving in and out of the city. So we'll see how we go with that, and I'll show you the results when they're done. So I've taken a couple of test shots on 24 to 70 millimeter lens set at 24. It's not quite wide enough to get the full width of the city in, and I really want to get a shot with the city in the sort of bottom of the shot with the highways leading into it, and then a lot of sky, particularly as the sky's starting to light up now close to sunset. So I'm going to switch over to the trusty Voigtlander 20mm lens and take a couple of shots on that and work out which one's going to be the best one for later. So here's what I can see through the 20mm lens. As you can see, it's considerably wider than what I had before, as you would expect, and I can get much more of the sky in. On the video view with the 16:9 format, it cuts off a bit at the top and the bottom in comparison with taking the still shots, so I can get an even more of the sky in when I'm shooting a still. So that's what I've got. I think I'll stick with this. I'm just going to put the filter holder on there, polarize it a little bit, and then make it so that I can put some neutral density filters on later on to slow the shutter speed down. So that's the adapter to go from 72mm to 77. Now screw the holder and polarizing filter on, and we're done. Now here I've got a neutral density filter and a graduated neutral density filter. The graduated filter I'm just going to put on, it's a 2-stop grad filter to just darken down the top of the sky a little bit. I can fix that in post-processing, but it's always better to get the ideal exposure taken in camera first. Of course, having last used this down at the beach, just need to flick a bit of the dust off it. It was quite windy down there last night, and a fair bit of dust ended up on there, so always carry these with you. Can't have too many lens cloths. So I'll just show you what the effect of that graduated filter is. And if I just slide this down, and if you watch the top of the screen there, you can see that darken up, and that just balances out the exposure. And you can see relatively, because I'm on automatic exposure here, that lightens up the foreground in comparison with the sky as well. So I'm going to take a few more shots and then just sit around and wait for the show to happen. So in the end I've opted for the 24 to 70 because the 20 was just a little bit too wide. So we'll see how we go with this. I just wanted to emphasize the buildings a bit more. That sky's doing really nicely now, so and the sun is just reflecting off the buildings. Quite pretty. So it's now 15 minutes after sunset, and the street lights and building lights are starting to show up against the sky. There's still enough light in the sky to add some interest there, so I'm going to take a few more shots now and show you those, and then wait another 20 minutes, half an hour until it gets darker again, and then slower shutter speeds will give me much more blur in the car lights. So it's now half an hour after sunset and the sky is darkening up, but the street lights and car lights and building lights are really showing up well. So I'm going to take a few more shots here and then wait until the sky gets really dark and take a few more.